short video, we will be learning about the basics and overview of ecology. To get us started, we have to know firstly, what is ecology? So what's the definition of ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions between organisms and their environment. So we're looking at interactions between groups of organisms and other organisms, or organisms and the environment itself. So when we're talking about ecology, we categorize things in the environment as either being biotic or abiotic. As you may already know, bio means life, a means without, so let's piece these things together. So a biotic factor is a living factor in the environment. These are going to be things like plants, animals, bacteria. The list is endless, goes on and on. Abiotic factors, since we know A means without and we know bio means life, that means without life or non-living factors. So these are going to be things that never possess life ever, ever, ever. Air, water, clouds, sunlight, not man-made objects. Do not confuse non-living with man-made. All right, in applying these terms, we're going to look at this cartoony picture of an ecosystem and point out some. Let's start with, well, since A is at the beginning of the alphabet, we'll start there. Abiotic factors. I'm going to use orange. So here we have an atmosphere. Here we have some clouds. If I was going to draw a sun, we have that. We have some water here. All right, now if we're going to do biotic factors, that's going to be a little bit easier. We have ducks. We have butterflies. We have beaver, deer, birds, swan, fish, these little plants here, these cattail looking things, the grass. So the purple was the biotic. Those are all the living things. All right, levels of organization. Also, when we're talking ecosystems, we have divided into groups, or levels of organization. All right, the first step in the level of organization, this chart says individual, but let me change back to orange. It's a little bit easier to see. We're going to call that an individual is also called an organism. So one organism, a single living thing. Organism is something you'll hear forevermore. A population is a group of the same organism living in one area together. So this is a population of fish. A community. Now if you look in here, we have different species. So we have different populations living together. Okay, now if you're noticing a pattern, an individual, an organism, one fish. Population, many fish. Community, many fish and many other things. Many other living things living together. Ecosystem. Now you notice we have this rock and water here. So it's a community plus abiotic factors or non-living things. Okay, a biome is a larger ecosystem. So when we talk about biomes, we're talking about places like the desert or the coral reef or where we live, the deciduous forest. Okay, it's a larger ecosystem and it all has similar climate, rainfall, temperature, and then characteristic organisms. And then the biosphere, now we're back to biome again, or bio, excuse me. Life, so it's the living sphere. So it's basically all the living things on Earth. So when we're looking at ecosystems, we can kind of break it down and figure out what communities, populations, and organisms live there. All right, a habitat and a niche. So in an environment, we'll have organisms that have habitats and niches. All organisms have these things. A habitat is a place where an organism lives, so its address. A niche is the role that it plays in the environment. Typically, this is going to be surrounding what it eats or what eats it, but it can also be how it behaves. And we'll kind of get into some of those things in just a minute. But if you see here, we have a habitat and niche of many different kinds of warblers. They live in different parts of the tree, and they live in those different parts based on what it is they're eating. All right, so feeding relationships and trophic levels. This is also where the niches come in. All right, a trophic level is a position it occupies in the food chain. So it's like the feeding level. Like, where are you in the food chain? That's what it's answering. All right, producers, the most important part of the food chain because all life relies on them. They produce their own food. They are called autotrophs because they can self-feed through a process called photosynthesis. So anything that does photosynthesis is an autotroph. Definitely write some examples down: plants, algae, photosynthetic bacteria as well. All right, a consumer is any organism that has to eat to obtain energy. So this could be something microscopic or something super large. All right, we call those heterotrophs. All right, hetero means different. Troph means feed, just like troph here, feeding. So they have to feed differently. Whereas autotrophs, auto, like autobiography, is about yourself. Troph, feed. They're self-feeders. All right, and these you probably definitely are familiar with. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat, we say, flesh/meat. Omnivores eat plants and meat. And then decomposers, they recycle nutrients in the environment. So for example, worms, fungi, so they break down dead things and recycle those nutrients back into the environment.